everything is so bleak right now. So let's at least try to put on a smile on a couple of people's faces. And if we do that, then my mission is done.
Hello, my name is Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So, at the time that the pandemic hit, and I mean like really hit when everyone was like, oh yeah, we better stay locked up in our houses, this show was about 5 months old. So it started at the end of 2019 and I was just getting my bearings, and then poof, I was locked up like the rest of you. And for the longest time, I kind of wanted this show to just pretend that the pandemic wasn't happening in the outside world. And so I would just make no mention of the fact that it was happening. And if I had conversations with people about it when I was interviewing them, I would just kind of edit that out of the conversation and just pretend that everything was peachy, because I think I wanted this show to be an opportunity to escape all of that rather than wallow in it. But maybe, and just maybe, I'm ready to talk about the pandemic, because we are still in it, I think. Anyway, so one of the really wonderful things that happened in that time, in those early months of the pandemic, was that there was this explosion of online drag shows and queer parties where performers just innovated and found new ways to continue entertaining people when they weren't able to do so in a bar or in a club. And it's one of these online drag shows, Dragoslavia, that we are going to learn all about on today's show. Now, Dragoslavia is the brainchild of the Slovenia-based drag queen Mentalika, who set it up as a way of bringing queens from Balkan countries together and celebrating their art on a wider platform. We met up to discuss the reason behind setting up the show, logistical nightmares, of which there are many, believe you me, and what it is like to form a drag house before you even know who your drag character is. Oh, and I should apologize up front. My knowledge of Slovenia and other Balkan countries kind of starts and ends with what acts they send to Eurovision each year. So that is going to come through quite clearly throughout this conversation. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted to that. Okay, let's get into it. Why don't we go to the beginning of your drag journey? Mm-hmm. When did you first say to yourself, ooh, I might be interested in that?
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you an exact time and date.
Okay, I guess.
Because because I feel like I've always kind of had a thing for being on the stage and performing.
Yeah.
I always felt that inside of me, and I've been doing shows and plays before in my childhood and during my teenage years. But specifically when it comes to drag, I don't know. I think really like the first time where I actually saw myself doing it is the night that we decided that we're gonna do it.
And who's we?
House of Dynasty.
Okay.
It's me, Plastica Dynasty, and No Name S. We were basically three besties, partying, hanging out together for a couple of months, and we kind of formed a very strong bond together. And then one night we were just kind of like going out, and it was a drag trash out party in our local gay club. And we were like, fuck it, let's do it. Why not? It will be fun. And we were looking busted as fuck.
It's a rite of passage.
Of course.
It happens to everyone. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, we just kind of, we weren't thinking much about it. We were just put on some skirt and some heels and paint my nails and put some eyeshadow. And we were feeling it. And I don't know, we had a lot of fun. And then the next week, literally the next weekend, it was the kind of like a masquerade party in our local club, because in Slovenia there's this, I guess it's a holiday. It's like a thing called Pust, and it's basically, it happens every February. Yeah, spelled Pust. And it's kind of like it's a traditional thing where it's basically chasing off the winter, announcing spring.
In February?
Yeah.
Surely it's still freezing in February.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think it's kind of like a I don't know, it has something to do with religion. I really wouldn't know.
Sorry, I shouldn't be questioning it. This is not part of the story. Pust. So the next week was Pust.
Yeah. And so for Pust, everyone kind of like masks up, right? It's kind of like a Halloween, but Slavic.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, it's Pust. What we're gonna do? Let's go as fucking drag queens. We did it the weekend before.
We've already got the costume.
Yeah. And so this time we kind of put a bit more effort. We kind of went all in. Well, not all in, but we certainly did more and had even more fun. And then we kind of got to thinking like, why didn't we see any drag queen like in this past 4 or 5 years living in Ljubljana? And we were like, well, if there's no other drag queen, we're gonna be the drag queens, and we're gonna make the drag scene here.
Wow.
And yeah.
And so it was a collective decision. There was no one person who was kind of the ringleader.
Well, no, not really. I think all three of us kind of just like wanted to have fun and wanted to make a change, wanted to make a difference, wanted to be noticed, because all three of us we're not from Ljubljana. Plastika, she is from Macedonia, actually. I am from Serbia originally, and No Name was from a town on the seaside of Slovenia. So we were all kind of, not native to the environment. And I guess we wanted to really leave our stamp.
And so how long ago was this when this Pust happened and you decided... Am I saying it really badly, by the way? Should I put more... Pust?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
That's the one, you got it.
So how long ago was this?
That was 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that's 4 years from now.
Aye.
Shit.
And
Yeah.
what was the plan from there? Like you were like, yeah, we're going to take over the scene. We're going to become renowned drag queens. Where do you start?
We had no idea what we were doing,
Yeah.
We had no budget. We had nothing, no connections, no nothing. It was just, I remember like going out in a randomest, nappiest wig that you could possibly imagine.
What color?
Blonde, of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah, brilliant.
And then just like a random like dress from the secondhand store, And I thought I was serving it.
And are there photos of this evening that we could maybe see?
Let's just say they are in the archives. No, there was no plan. We really wanted to just be in drag every weekend, So we really made an effort to like every weekend, every Friday, because Fridays and Saturdays are really like the only party nights in Ljubljana.
Yeah.
Saturdays even less so. Fridays were like the big nights. So like every Friday we would definitely, like one of us would definitely be in drag. So we were just waiting, I guess, for someone to notice us, for someone to be like, oh, okay, these girls are here like every night. And they're obviously not doing this just because they are cross-dressing. They're really putting effort into this, and they're good. And it finally happened. After a couple of months, the organizers from the club approached us and they were like, hey, do you like want to perform? And then we did.
And it was always the plan then that you wanted to perform. It wasn't just like, we want to go out dressed up.
Yeah. The plan was to perform. Absolutely.
And were you like... Sorry, I'm asking really dumb questions, so thank you for indulging me. Usually, the experience of someone getting into drag is that they experiment at home and like buy makeup and then try it out and see what's going on and then very, very slowly start to go out. But the three of you together kind of coached each other on and were like, yeah, let's do it. And so I have visions in my head of you hanging around watching makeup tutorials and teaching one another and having wonderful evenings. What actually happened?
Well, it was very much that. Once we were like, okay, we're doing drag, then it was kind of like you have to start somewhere. So for example, I never really dabbled in makeup. I really didn't. Like, I came out in high school, I guess. And like then I think I kind of tried to like do some makeup in order to like be more queer or whatever. But it never really clicked with me. It was always more about expression and body language, I think. So yeah, it was a lot of watching tutorials, going through shops, secondhand stores, seeing what you can use, maybe possibly as some garment. And yeah, seeing what sticks. I mean, I don't know, like it took me a year and a half to actually come to Mentalika because I was first going as Petra HD. And I was doing like the Trixie mug, that was kind of like my thing because I never really wanted to like look like a woman. And also on top of that, I knew that like my makeup skills weren't good.
So if they're not good, then like exaggerate the badness. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of like the roughness around the edge a bit. So I never really shaved like my hairy chest or my armpits. The first idea was to be like a bearded witch, but then I kind of very quickly dropped that because as a trio, as a group, we always wanted to challenge ourselves. We always wanted to try out new things, and we kind of always encouraged each other to try doing different numbers, try wearing different things, try doing different makeup, in order to see what sticks. And I think after a year and a half, I finally figured out that like, okay, I want to do like a non-binary character that doesn't look like anything but looks fierce.
And I want to ask, because you said that you'd only really known each other for 6 months before then.
Well, I knew Plastica for longer.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we kind of met up with No Name a bit later, and then because Plastica and I were such good friends, we kind of became a group after that. But yeah.
Adopted No Name.
Oh.
Because it's kind of like being in a band, right? It's kind of like being in this, a girl band even. And sometimes it's just magical and sometimes it's not. How did you know that this was it?
Well, I don't think we did. I really don't think we did. I don't think we had any idea how big this is actually gonna get. Well, big. I'm saying big. Like in my mind, this is like where we got now with the drag scene is really like huge. Like we're having drag shows almost every week. So I feel like we really like made a huge difference. And I don't think there was a way of knowing. It was all very circumstantial.
Circumstantial. What do you mean by that?
Well, in a way that like none of it was really planned. We didn't really start this going, oh yeah, I'm gonna
take over the city.
Yeah, I'm gonna have drag as my professional career, It was always kind of like for fun. We would also like tell this to each other, like it has to be fun. Because if it's not fun, why are we doing it? We're not getting paid enough for this, not even closely, for the amount of work, time, effort, money that we put into this. So if it's not fun, then what's the point? So it has to be fun. And because the community is so small and because the resources are so scarce, we don't have wig stylers, we don't have fashion designers, we have,
Oh, yeah, and where do you buy shoes?
Oof, that's another story. Like I was wearing shoes 2 sizes too small for a year and a half.
Oh.
Because, I just didn't have the money for anything else.
Oh, no. Have your feet recovered?
They're still very small. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I want to ask then about what the scene is like in Slovenia. You've said already that there was no like real drag scene or anything, but what's the queer scene like?
It's very divided, I would say. And it's very, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is going to be controversial, but...
Oh, say it.
Stirring the pot. I feel like it's kind of stagnating. It was stagnating for a very long time because I feel like there would be waves of like queer art explosions and queer happening explosions in Ljubljana and in Slovenia. And there will be like a period like at the beginning of the 90s for like a couple of years, and then like at the end of 90s for a couple of years, then mid 2000s with Sestre.
Oh my God, I was going to bring them up.
Yeah, well,
I've got it written down here. I'm so excited. Well, okay, so for people who are listening, the Sestre were a drag girl band that performed at Eurovision in 2004, maybe?
I would
When?
like to say 2003.
I
think
need
it's
to look
three.
this
I'm
up.
not
I need to look
100%.
this up. Oh, we're both wrong. 2002.
Oh, is it two? Okay, work.
That's our Eurovision card thrown in the bin. So they were actually big.
Yeah, for a couple of years, you know, I think they started performing like by the end of 90s, and then they kind of formed this group together. And then again, like by the end of the 2000s, there was like a small competition starting up, like the Slovenia's Next Best Drag. I think it had a couple of iterations. So there were like a couple of bubbles, like here and there, like every couple of years, like some drag queens would just resurge, and it would like happen for a couple of months, and then it would just stop. So what was the question?
I mean, it was more about the gay scene rather than the drag scene, but like...
It was very divided. And because we have only one gay club in whole of Slovenia, there's not much competition, right? Because the gay club doesn't need to like invest in, I don't know, expensive stages or expensive projects or festivals or whatever, because whatever they make, the fags are gonna come. If I can, if I can be crude.
All of the fags?
Most of them, they're gonna fill the club. You know what I mean? That was never the issue, and I would hear like throughout my partying period in Ljubljana, I would hear this complaint constantly. Like whenever I would go out to the club, that like the music is always the same, that like the people are always the same, the vibe is always the same, there's always drugs, there's always fucking, there's always groping, you know.
And so what about going out not on the gay scene? Like, do you feel comfortable going to straight clubs?
Oh, absolutely not. That might be maybe more of a specific thing for me, specifically for me, to me, because I feel like a lot of the parties here in Ljubljana tend to gravitate towards the Balkan type of music. And
Okay.
growing up on the Balkans, I don't know, I find the culture very toxic, and I don't like being reminded of that every time I go out and party.
Explain it a bit to me.
Well, it's just very like, if you stand out in any way, if you are not like the rest of the group, if you're behaving out of the ordinary, how like a man should behave or how a woman should behave, you're gonna be pointed out, you're gonna be, called out, maybe even attacked physically or verbally,
But so you would characterize the Balkan culture as macho and very gendered?
I think you could say that, yeah. But I think it's also very, how do I say this? It's very like pointing fingers, right? I think the culture is very, it has this embedded into it, the fear of other,
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, yeah.
which I feel maybe is true for a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
But yeah, the machismo it's just scary. As a queer person, it's just scary to like be in a club where you're supposed to have fun and party and dance. And then you're not vibing with the music because, yeah, it's what you hear every day. And sometimes you just want to go and...
But not even that, just like being on the lookout the whole time, right? Like, oh, is there someone in here who has a problem with me? Do I need to protect myself?
Yeah, and policing your behavior, not saying things when there's a sketchy person around.
Okay, so that gives me a better idea of the scene. Let's go back then to the conversation about your big break. So your first night performing. What was going through your mind? What was your number as well?
It was a like I said, it was a competition thingy. May Queen, they titled it. So we each did like just one number, and then the audience cheered, for who was the best.
And you talked before about being like having a performing background and like being used to performing. Were there any nerves? Were you worried that people wouldn't understand what you were going to be doing? Or were you just like, yeah, I got this?
Yeah, I think I was like, yeah, I got this. I mean, I think there's always nerves when it comes for me personally. I think there's always nerves. There's always, I'm always nervous before I go to the stage because I care. I care about the performance. I care about being good and delivering and entertaining people. And if you want to achieve that, you have to be a bit nervous because, yeah. But then I feel like the moment I step on the stage and the moment the light hits me and the moment the song starts, it's all like evaporates. And it's just that moment in that place for me.
Do you ever experience not being nervous and then worrying because you're not nervous? Because you know you're going to fuck it up because you're not nervous enough?
Well, no, because then if I'm not nervous, that means that I don't care. So even if it's bad, I just don't care at that point.
But you don't want people to think you're bad, do you?
Well, they're not gonna because I'm good. But I mean, I definitely had some days, while hosting Dragoslavia. There were definitely days where I would be feeling very shitty or feeling very exhausted or very tired after working, 7 days a week and then coming back home and organizing an online drag show with people from 7 different countries and people who talk 4 different languages. Oof. And people sending you their videos on the day of the show where you have to import everything into Twitch and on top of that do makeup and write a script and host,
Okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We are here to talk about Dragoslavia. I was trying to get us there. I'm sorry, I'm taking too long. So
I'm sorry, I'm so rushy. I just talk a lot. I can't help it.
So you were kind of just at this point of having established yourself on the scene, picking up a name for yourselves, and like knowing who you were as drag performers when 2020 kind of happened. And you were locked in your house. Do you remember what you were thinking at the beginning of the pandemic?
I remember going, okay, we can deal with this. In the sense of like, okay, a couple of weeks away from the world, maybe that's all we need right now. I know that's a very awkward thing to say, right? Especially considering the consequences of the pandemic. But yeah, I remember not being that worried about it. It was after 1 month has passed and we were still in lockdown. At that point, I think I kind of started to panic and I was like, okay, this is not going to go away. This is the new reality. And what can we do about it? Because I feel like in the beginning, we were kind of thinking, okay, this is just going to last, a couple of weeks and then we're going to go back to performing and it's going to be summer. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen. And I was like, okay, it's been a month. I'm not going to let this momentum die off and we're going to do something. I remember watching a lot of these online drag shows on Twitch. Because of course, like the other queens from America, UK, Germany started doing these shows in order to get their bills paid. And I remember watching them, and I was like, I could do that. We could do that.
Yeah.
So I was snooping throughout the Balkan scene, and I did see that there's a lot of a lot of drag queens around, but of course they were all with very small followings. They were all probably not paid, So my another intent was to showcase drag from our countries even more, showcase drag in Macedonia, showcase drag in Croatia, showcase drag in Serbia, showcase drag in Bosnia, the little that there is, because we need the exposure. We need, people to see this.
And what's the relationship like between all of those countries? Like, is it competitive? Is it familial? Is it something else?
Well, I don't know. That's a very complex topic.
Sorry. Yeah, of course. Hundreds of years of history. Tell me in one sentence. Go.
Yeah, very that. But no, I feel like, because Serbia, Bosnia, Montenegro, and Croatia, it's all like one language, right? You can call it four different languages because sociolinguistically they're four different languages. But looking at them like purely linguistically, they're the same language. So there's no language barrier between these four countries. And then Macedonia and Slovenian are also like so ingrained with like all of this culture that they also understand these languages because they hear it so much in the media. And I don't know, I feel like young people don't hold so many grudges as maybe previous generations do when it comes to the past. And I feel like we all kind of just like want to move on from what has happened and we want to create something new and something that is for us. And I feel like that has always prevailed when we were creating Dragoslavia because it was just this sense of like coming together after all the differences and after all the hardships and after all the the struggles that we go through as queer people on the Balkans. I think coming together and creating something beautiful and fun and entertaining is really cool, you know.
And so you managed to convince people, you managed to rally the troops and bring everyone together in order to put on the first Dragoslavia.
Yes.
Do you remember the lead up to that first event and what were you thinking?
Oh, it was so exciting. It was so exciting. I couldn't even tell you because I feel like it was all such a frenzy. Like we started the idea and we produced the whole thing in like 11 days. I remember it was the end of April and we really wanted to do something on the May 1st, right?
Because you were May Queens?
No, because May 1st, it's the International Day of Work or something like that. I don't know how you translate it.
International Day of Work? What?
Yeah, it's like
Why would you
it's
want to
like
celebrate work?
it's like a communist holiday. I don't even know. We call it yeah, literally holiday of work. So each May 1st and May 2nd are work-free days.
Well, so you celebrate work by not going to work?
Yeah. Well, it's celebrating workers' rights, more than
Okay.
anything
Sorry.
else.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It is a bit confusing with all these different holidays and customs. But yeah, we really wanted to do something on the 1st of May. And I remember having like very little time because it was literally the end of April. And yeah, we really wanted to like go all the way. And we really wanted to make something quality and something that is going to be really successful. So we worked our asses off. We made that promo, recorded those videos, edited those videos, and aired it. And it was a very successful show. I remember having like 320 people tuning in live to watch us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I might have made some assumptions that I got wrong about online drag shows. How much of it is live and how much of it is pre-recorded?
The only part that is live is me.
Introducing.
Me hosting it. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything else is pre-recorded and sent to me in a video file that then I play for the audience to see. Yeah.
Oh, and so were you terrified of fucking up?
Well, in the beginning, of course, because I had no experience with streaming. I had no experience with hosting even, So, yeah, it was absolutely nerve-wracking because, again, I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, of course, we did like a test run, but one thing is a test run where you don't have 320 people looking at you from the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think after a while I just kind of like got used to it. It was very much a routine,
Tell me about that first night then. What happened?
Well, yeah, we had our first show. I think there was 11 of us. 11 of us involved, 11 performances from 7 different countries. Because we also included queens from Kosovo, for example, right? So you would absolutely have queens from Kosovo and Serbia on the same show, working together, communicating, And I remember after that show, just the response from the audience was so positive. It was so supportive that we just kind of immediately after the show that night, like at 11 at midnight, I don't even know when it ended, we immediately decided like, okay, this is great. Let's do this all the time, And then in 2 weeks, it was Eurovision. And we were like, okay, we're doing a Eurovision show.
Okay, I want to know more about this.
Yeah, that was also crazy because like the show finished on the 1st of May and then the next show was literally in 2 weeks. So people literally had like 4 or 5 days to prepare for a video, film a video and edit the video and then send it to me and have it be showcased. So I don't even know how we managed to do it because looking back it's really fucking crazy.
Because everyone was locked in their house, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. It was lockdown. You couldn't really go anywhere. Like you had to make do with what you had. Nothing was open. You couldn't buy more stuff, you know? Like what you had, that's it. And many of us didn't have anything. So it was very hodgepodge. Like I remember streaming on my laptop camera, with my laptop mic, not having any equipment. I remember being tipped €5 after the first show.
But there's something really nice about that, like being limited by the things around you, right? Like, because otherwise you can spend ages planning something and just get stuck in the planning stage.
Absolutely. I feel like that's kind of what's happening to me now, where I'm kind of like, okay, I've done a lot of things, so I'm kind of like stagnating and rethinking things through.
Oh no. Are you bathing in your own insecurities?
Yeah, it's that.
Oh, I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah. It's also because like when I do drag now, I want it to be like really thought out and really good. And I'm also kind of like taking a lot more time for myself than I did before. And I'm also learning to do that to begin with because I feel like throughout my whole life I've always been like a people pleaser. So it's very hard for me to kind of like not be workaholic and like sit down and take time for myself. And I think that's what I'm trying to do a bit now. And back then in lockdown, like you had no choice. Like what you had, that was that. And like if you wanted to do something, you had to figure out a way how.
Yeah, so lots of that resonates with me. I feel that way. Definitely a people pleaser. I feel really worried about stopping because sometimes I think if I stop, I'm never going to be able to start again. I'll just get stuck in the stopping.
Well, I feel like my body told me to stop at some point. I remember burning out severely, and it was kind of a wake up call. And it happened, well, after the lockdown, like after everything opened. And then we kind of stopped doing online shows and we kind of wanted to move on to actually doing live shows now that we could, right? So Dragoslavia got on a bit of a break, but then we started doing live Dragoslavia shows, which were even bigger productions because now you had queens actually physically coming over, right? Yeah, and then I just remember like severely burning out and realizing that like, okay, we need to stop. The body is giving up. There's a valuable lesson to be learned there. Absolutely.
There's something in there as well for me about how much more intense real life things are now. Sorry, I'm giggling. I don't know why I'm giggling. I think maybe I feel a bit awkward for saying that. There's something about it being so much more exhausting to be in the presence of other people because I've forgotten how to do it.
Well, yeah, that does make sense because I also remember like going out like after the period of lockdown and during the period of like everything closing down at midnight.
Oh, okay. So that's what they did in your country.
Yeah, yeah. Everything closed at like midnight or 1 and you couldn't be inside, right? So like you couldn't be in the club. Everything had to be outside on the open. And I remember just like that experience is just so wildly different from what we were used to. Because like I don't know, you go to a club, you dance to loud music, you don't really hear people, you don't really see people, you just feel people. And then you just kind of dance, and if you see someone, you kind of look at each other, and then you maybe like you flirt with your body, you flirt with your dance, and then a spark happens or doesn't happen, And I feel like there was a much more uncertainty to what would happen in a night. And then when we were like all outside, it was just, groups of people standing, drinking and talking. And it was much harder to connect with other people because it's so much more awkward to just walk up to someone and be like, hey, what are you talking about?
Oh, I don't know how people do that. It's so weird.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. I sometimes wish I had the ability to do that, but other times I'm like, That's just wrong. Anyway, um, yeah. I feel like there's just this whole recalibration period in terms of going back to the way things were in inverted commas that none of us are prepared for because none of us have ever like been through something as traumatic as a pandemic before. And yeah, I just don't know when things are going to feel okay again. Oh, this is taking a dark turn. I'm sorry.
It for sure did. But look, I feel like the world is in a very gray state right now, and there's very little hope, I feel like, left in people's hearts and in people's minds, because every month there's something bleak happening, and we hear about new wars, we hear about new laws and bills that prohibit drag shows, that prohibit trans existence. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like that kind of kept me going, in the sense of like kept me doing drag, because I felt like everything is so bleak right now, so let's at least try to put on a smile on a couple of people's faces. And if we do that, then my mission
Yeah.
is done.
So the pandemic, I was going to say the pandemic ended. The pandemic, we all collectively decided to ignore the pandemic and we started leaving our houses and nightlife started. Dragoslavia briefly moved to a real life thing. And then you just stopped doing the online shows?
Yeah, I feel like as Dragoslavia was airing, like as we started gaining more and more traction, as more people started messaging us about wanting to be included in the show, as more queens started doing drag to begin with, more queens started popping up in all countries. And I feel like along the way, the couple of people that kind of stayed close to me during the organization process, because there were not many of them, we kind of all, I think we all had in mind that like once the pandemic is over, with, I'm doing quotation marks, we will take this to a higher level and we will take this live, and we will book venues and perform for live people and be paid real money. So I feel like it was always in the back of our heads that like we're gonna eventually stop doing the online thing, because it is very taxing. It is very taxing. It takes a lot more time than just doing one number. Kind of, if you're filming a video, you have to think about many other things than just like choreo. You have to think of angles, lights,
Oh, yeah, lighting.
and it's a lot of hassle for not a lot of return, because
Yeah.
of course our viewership also dwindled at the second half because clubs started being open.
And I
So,
imagine chasing
yeah.
people for their videos is horrific.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. After a point, it really became very, very exhausting.
Okay, but let's not focus on that. Sorry, we're here to celebrate Dragoslavia. I'm taking us to
Yes.
all the dark places. So then let me ask you, looking back on that period in your life, and I know technically it's not that long ago, but it does feel like a long time ago, right?
Feels like 10 years ago.
What role did Dragoslavia play in your life? Like, why was it important?
I think it taught me that you can really do anything you put your mind to. If you really want something, just try it. Just see where it goes. And who knows? It was literally the shoot for the moon and you may end up amongst the stars moment. It was very that.
Are you one of those people that loves those cheesy phrases?
I actually hate them.
Oh, okay. It's like, this does not sound like you.
No, I actually despise them.
Do you have any memories of Dragoslavia or any other online drag shows or parties that happened during the pandemic? Well, if you do, why not get in touch? I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories of queer clubbing, but I need your help. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space to tell me all about what it is you got up to. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, where my handle is LostSpacesPod. Find out more about Mentalika by following her on Instagram, and that is at Mentalika, Mentalika, and then there is an underscore after that. So Mentalika _. I've made this more complicated than it needed to be. And if you want to find out more about Dragoslavia, including details of who performed at each show, why not check out the Instagram page, which is at Dragoslavia. Easy. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform of choice, or just told somebody else who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. My name is Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.